All right, guys, what's going on out there? Rooster here in Tennessee. I'm going to try to keep this video real brief. Just going to be kind of an introduction video. I may start doing some of these, just basic information for radio. A lot of people getting into radio that don't have a whole lot of information. So this will be kind of intermediate stuff, I guess you'd say. Today, I'm just going to do the basic tuning of a tube top amplifier. The same principles I use for big tube amps, steel tubes. Whether it's large steel tube amps, 500Z glass tubes, or sweep tube amps like this one in front of you here. This one has one 6LQ6 tube driving three 6LQ6 tubes. It's a low drive amp. My favorite sweep tube amplifier ever made. This is my personal one that I've kept. I've had several of these, but this is the one I've always kept. It wasn't the strongest, but it's just been my go-to. The set of tubes in this thing have been in there for 5+ years. I've had the amp 5 years. I don't know how long the tubes were in there before I got it. It has not lost hardly any power since I've had it. If it has lost power, maybe 5 or 10 watts. Nothing significant, okay? So the method I'm using, tried and tested to work for me. It's worked for me, big amps, little amps, whatever. I don't blow tubes. I don't go through tubes. Amps I run don't eat tubes. I'm not putting tubes in every other year, so must be doing something right. If you've got your own way of tuning amps, that's fine. Not going to criticize you for it. I'm just going to show my way for those people that are interested. If you disagree with me, of course you're welcome to comment, but be ready, I might fire back at you. So if you come to me with some heat, I'm going to fire some heat back. Anyway. We're just going to go through the basics of it here and just a little general information. We'll show how to tune it, and then I'll wrap the video up. Nobody wants to watch a 15-minute video, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So, start out. This amp's got 3 tuners on it. A lot of them just have 2 for the output, and then they'll have an input tune. I may cover the input tune in another video. That doesn't apply to this amp. We've just got output tuners here. So, we've got a drive that controls the single driver tube, load and tune. I believe on this amp, both of them control the 3 output tubes. So, you see where they're at right now. I've kind of pre-tuned this amp, cheated a little bit, and got it pretty close. But all the same, we're just going to run through the motions as if I haven't. So how I like to start is I like to start left to right. I'll start with this one, and then I'll move across. And I'm just going to audio into the microphone until I see peak power. Now, yes, there's some technical ways to tune an amp out there. If it has a plate current meter or a grid current meter, we're not covering that, okay? Some people say you got to dip the plate current, peak the grid current. Usually, that coincides with peak output of the amp. When you do that, when you get those readings on a more sophisticated amplifier, you would get the same results just by peaking the output of the amp. So tune for maximum smoke, as they say. Maximum smoke being maximum output. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to tune for maximum output. And we're going to tune it with the audio. Another thing people like to say, you'll see this said all the time. You got a guy that doesn't know anything about amps, and he'll say, well, how many watts can it take? How much drive can it take? And you'll have some igmo say, well, it only takes 2 watts of drive. Okay, well, somebody that doesn't know, they don't know what 2 watts of drive is. I mean, do they think that's 2 watts of forward output? Usually they're referring to dead key when they say 2 watts of drive. But they're not telling you the peak output you can put into it. So, for the purpose of this video, we're keying about 2 watts in, dead key, and we're swinging about 35 peak. Because peak matters, okay? You can't tell somebody, well, you can put 2 watts into this amp, and they get their Striker 955 that dead keys 2 watts and swings 75, and then they wonder why they blew it up. Well, I was only keying 2 watts. That was 2 watts of drive. 2 watts swinging 75 is way different than 2 watts swinging 35, which is what we're hitting this thing with today. So keep that in mind. All right, enough rambling. Let's get into it. Put the watt meter on peak. It's going to be annoying. I'm just going to audio. I'm going to try to keep it brief so it's not super annoying. I hate hearing people tune up amps with audio, but I guess it's just as well off as using a tone generator. Some people like to use a tone generator. What is it, 1,000 kilohertz, 1,000 hertz tone, something like that. So I know this is going to be annoying, me audioing into the microphone, but bear with me here, just a demonstration. Okay, we're keyed up. Audio. Try to watch the watt meter in the back. We're doing about 450 to 500 right there. 1,000 watt slug. Audio. Audio. There you go. Pretty close right there. So we're done. We're going to unkey. My advice, when you're tuning an amp, unkey for as long as you were keyed up. Give the amp a little bit of a break. Can't stress that enough. I hear guys do it, and man, they will sit there and sit there and sit there until they flatten the tubes in their amp. They'll audio for 30 minutes, continuous. Only reason they stop is to get their breath. I mean, I know you guys have heard them. You've heard them. I know you guys have got those locals that do it. We do here. They'll, and they'll just keep going and going and going until their amp doesn't put out power anymore. Don't do that. In between tunes, give it a 15-second break, 30-second break, whatever. Move on to the next one. It doesn't take long to figure out if you're in tune or not. So let's do this one. Audio. Okay, we've peaked that one out. So give it a break. Enjoy the peacefulness in between the keys. Now we're going to do this final tuner over here, and then we'll be done. Audio. About 400, about 490 watts peak is what we're seeing. If you can see that meter, let's just check it on average. Audio. A little bit shy of 200. 190, 200. That's how I tune amps, guys. You can run through it a second time. Generally, if I was doing this on my setup, I'd run through everything once and then I'd run through it a second time. Okay? You can also tune for average power and not peak. Generally, what that does is your dead key will end up coming up a little bit and you'll lose a little bit of that peak output. Ideally, you would always tune for peak if you could, but as so has it, a lot of people are running ginormous peak watts out there today. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 watts. So they don't always have a meter that will read that high in peak, or a slug that will. So you can tune out for forward power on average if you desire to. Also, you can tune with a dead key, okay? If you have to, you can tune with a dead key. A lot of the older amps or older radios, people would just tune them with a dead key because guess what? They're doing the same average power going forward as they are peak. So a lot of older radios, let's say you got a Browning or something, and it dead keys 4 watts average power, or 4 watt, it dead keys 4 watts and it modulates to 5 watts average power. Now it might be modulating to 12 or 15 watts peak, but the average power is real close to the dead key. People would just tune out amps with a dead key and it works just fine that way. Ends up being about the same. That's my 10 cents, I guess you should say, on tube amplifiers. A guy requested me to do this video. Doesn't know how to tune amps or whatever. No problem. I have no problem doing that. Again, I'm not the end all be all. I just know from experience. This is what I know. Oh, one last thing. You guys get some bad information out there. You've probably heard this one before too. Somebody says tune it for maximum output and then cut it back. I'm going to tell you right now that's the worst thing you can do for an amp besides overdriving it. When you tune something for maximum output, you're basically putting the tubes in the best case scenario. When you detune it, it's putting a heavier load on the tubes than it needs to be on there. In just basic terminology, I guess you'd say. Don't detune an amp. If you need to do less power, drive the amp with less watts. never, ever, ever detune, because it will put more stress on the tubes. That's a quick way to go through tubes. The comparison I like to make is if you were driving a car and you wanted to go slower, you just let off the gas. You wouldn't get in there and detune the engine just to go slower. You just let off the gas a little bit. Same way with these tube amps. Don't ever detune. These aren't variables, okay? This is a variable. This will cut your amp back without detuning it. These are tuners. They're not to be used as a variable. Guys, I guess that's it for this video. I may do some more basic radio videos. I know I get tied up doing equipment and stuff for sale a lot of times and don't really have time to do this stuff. But I may start trying to do some more because, yes, our hobby is growing. A lot of people getting involved in it that have no idea anything about radio, and I'd like to help them as well. That's the hardest part about CB radio, is getting involved in it from the beginning and knowing what to buy, what not to buy, what to do, what not to do. So hopefully this saves you some money, saves you some time, saves you some tubes. Some of these tubes are expensive. You don't want to blow them. So if anything else, I hope it helps you with that. Enjoy the video, guys. Rooster in Tennessee. Questions or comments, shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. And yes, also complaints if you have any. You can always text me. Just be ready, because I will text back. All right, you guys have a good one out there. Rooster in Tennessee. See you, bye.